there is a level where parents, must decrease so that their child's independence can increase, their autonomy, their own, decision making. They're having their own agency, because with great power comes great responsibility, and we want them to have that. Welcome to the podcast. We're glad you joined us. And today we have a topic that I think is actually vital for all parents, and it is about identity.
Yeah. So identity is something that we talk about a lot when we go out and do workshops and things like that. We talk about identity, belonging, and mission. And we've been trying to kind of do themes, right, for the last couple weeks. We talked about knowing our own identity and then having our sense of belonging. And now we're into mission. Yeah. And our mission as parents, the mission is the kids.
Yeah,
right? Parenting is the mission.
So how do we confer it on our kids?
Right. And so now when we're talking about these things for ourselves, we also need to step back for a minute and think about, well, how do we actually confer identity upon our children? Right. How do we help our children to understand and to answer that question, who am I? Because if we don't answer that question for our children, the world is very happy to tell your children who they are.
Will naturally be asking this question, so therefore, who is going to answer it? Right. And that's the job of the parent. That's our job. That's why we get paid the big bucks, right?
Exactly.
And so this is a great, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we need to help our children discover, again, that whole idea of self-gift.
Yeah, that they are.
Knowing that they are a gift, so they can learn how to make themselves as a gift to others. Really, they can only do that if they have a solid identity. And
kind of big picture, right? It all doing and everything else out there is preceded by being, meaning we are before we can go and do and interact and be in the world. And again, that's why identity is before belonging and before mission. Mm-hmm. It is in that core foundation that we find identity.
So just to be clear, this is kind of like a cycle, right? Our mission is to help form our children's identity, so they then can go out and form their own sense of belonging and their own mission, and then they can give identity to their children. So it's a cycle that goes round and around.
It's not a multi-level marketing scheme.
Yes.
Okay, but there is a sense where this is about that generational gift.
Which is why sometimes we say you are not just parenting your children, you are parenting your grandchildren.
That's right.
You need, especially in this topic that we're talking about today, you have to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Because how solid your children's identity is going to greatly affect their maturity, their marriage partner and vocation, and their future children.
Yeah. And our kids, the kids that are being raised today, there are more confusing messages than ever before.
So true.
And there's more coming after them. There's more targets on their back. Yep. And there's more means by which they can be influenced. Now, this has always been a challenge that, there's perennial things that happen at all times. But now I believe more than ever, this is a pivotal, important role that a parent's play in the life of their children. So we really want to unpack that. Yeah. I know we're in the midst of Lent, and we're more than halfway in. When this is released, we're in the final stretch.
That's right.
As we conclude Lent. And I'll tell you this: when the priests I think it was at Mass, someone said, like, we're more than halfway through. Now we're even more than this, but previously they said it was halfway through, and I'm like, shoot, there are things that I, wanted to get through that I haven't really done. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one who hasn't fulfilled every single Lenten promise. But I have this men's, like, part of the fellowship, the K-90 fellowship. And we all committed to each other to renew, not get frustrated that we didn't do things, but to double down again on what we want to do to finish strong. So I guess I would encourage, I don't know if you have any encouragement or thoughts or reactions to how your Lent has gone, but for me, I'm glad I still have some time left. And then I had somebody say to me, like, oh, K-90, is it worth jumping in even at this point? When we were out traveling. And I said, well, the beauty is that for what we see, Lent is helping prepare us to celebrate Easter, and Easter isn't just a day; it's a season.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love the fact that for us, Cana 90 is the Lent is the beginning, the preparation, the some of the hard work that is being done, but it also leads us into the life we're called to live throughout Easter.
So in other words, you're saying, no, it's not too late to jump into Cana 90?
Jump in, the water's great.
Because Cana 90 has only been going on really for 30 days or so. Right. And there is 90 days.
Right.
And so the season of Easter is all about family culture. And that's actually a longer part of Cana 90 is doubling down on your family culture. So if you want to jump in, first of all, there's amazing ideas for the Triduum, for celebrating
That's
Palm
right.
Sunday, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and of course, Easter Sunday. Honestly, join Cana 90 just to get those downloads.
Yeah.
And then after that, we take the 5 weeks of Easter, and we probably a little bit more than 5 weeks, but we look at the 5 different elements of your family culture and how can you grow in your marriage? How can you grow in developing gifts of your children? How do you grow in your family operations, how you run your home? And so it gives you some encouragement and ideas for each one of those elements, which I think is really key to a vibrant Catholic family life.
Yeah. So
join Cana 90.
We'd love to have you.
Okay.
All right.
So let's get into forming identity of your children. Okay. So first of all, we're going to frame this podcast in terms of stages of development.
Because it's a perfect framework. We use it a lot. For those who've listened to us, you know
Yes.
what we're talking about.
And I think we as parents make a huge mistake when you listen to people who do not frame any parenting advice in terms of the age of your
Right,
children.
because it's not the one size fits all, regardless of what
No.
age your child is.
No. They are 0 to 6, just to review. First plane of development, 0 to 6. Second plane, 6 to 12. Third plane, 12 to 18. If you have a child who has gone through at least 3 of those stages, you're nodding your head right now because you know those are 3 different types of kids. Even the same child can look so different
At each of those phases.
in each of those
Planes,
stages.
yeah.
Each of those planes of development. And, full credit to Maria Montessori for discovering and defining these planes of development. And so we have kind of experienced this, or we've found this simply through our experience.
Yeah.
And I feel like things that we've read have just like illuminated what we've already experienced.
Yeah, because I it's funny because either it's become such a part of my life now.
Yeah,
but
the way
just,
you see kids.
But it also is just like as we just reflect on, oh yeah, this is why, so-and-so child, this is what happened. And I can see the needs that they have, the struggles, the things that they're kind of pushing at are all coming forth from a clear understanding. So we want to give you that first as an overview. Right. And why don't you do the first one, right?
Yeah, and this is all, there's so much you can say about planes of development because you can talk about academic growth, physical growth, all of that. We're really only focusing on that one aspect of identity, okay, for each of these planes. So just full disclosure. And if you're interested, we talk about planes of development in other podcasts,
right? And
which
so
I'll try to remember to link to.
And so what we're going to do is we're going to give you a quick overview, and then we're going to go into some specific areas for each of these 3 planes and what that means for us and how because, again, thinking about the parent who asked us that question and said, okay, I get how identity is important to us.
Yeah.
How do I confer it on my kids? What does that look like tangibly? Why, what's the motivation as well as some things that we can do.
Yeah. So shout out to our Phoenix Teams of Our Lady groups, because that's where we met. That's where this dad asked us this question. And it was a really good one. It was one that we are now doing a whole podcast on. So
it's
thanks,
worth it.
Thanks for asking the question. So first of all right, so let's look at our 0 to 6 kid, right? These children, as far as identity, they love themselves. They are the most important person in their world.
That's right. That's right.
And children, because what are they doing at that age? They are constructing themselves. Your infants, your toddlers, your preschoolers, right? This is, in my opinion, this is one of my favorite stages. I just love those little guys. They're so they're so full of themselves in the best way possible. And they are just raw personality, right? They are who they are. And I think that it's important for parents to remember that how the regulation of their emotions and everything, because they are such raw personality and their brains aren't fully developed yet, they're really depending on parents to help regulate those emotions for them and to come into their lives and help really, of course, guide them and provide all of that environment, all of that protection, for not just physical protection, but even emotional protection, and just like keeping them really kind of in that little bubble. And that is a appropriate time to do that, at this stage.
And just to skip to the next plane, right? So the 6 to 12, it's just funny. I didn't know you were going to say that, which doesn't surprise me that that's your favorite. This is my favorite plane. The 6 to 12, this is where they begin to start more interacting with the world around them. This is where friendships become more important. There is a foundation laid here of them growing in strength and confidence in their giftedness. Again, just the beginnings of this. Mm-hmm. But it's, again, the church often calls the age of reason, right? Where they're now becoming, I think, more interesting, that they're not that I don't love little kids and toddlers and so forth. They're beautiful and wonderful, but now there is a deeper level of interaction that's possible, and their growth. If it was the I think Montessori calls the first plane the absorbent
mind,
and
right.
then
environment.
Now it's kind of the explorer, right?
Right.
Right. They're beginning. They're not fully going far, far away, but they're beginning to explore the outer world, as well as their life, their intellect, and all of that. And it's a whole new way of interacting with your child, and that's when you can begin to see the seeds of. Well, I'll get to that later, but the seeds of virtue and kind of cognition and rationality and so forth that are really becoming, and then seeing their future gifts beginning, just scratching the surface.
And I think it's important too to note that 6 to 12-year-old, even in terms of their body, they are even exploring their body.
That's right.
They're learning how to do things like run fast and play soccer or play football or climb a tree or work with their hands. Like, they're really just even exploring how does my body work?
That's right.
Like, how do I do that? Okay, and then we have our 12 to 18-year-olds.
Right.
Which we're going to say is our jointly favorite time.
I agree. I totally agree, actually.
You've all heard us talk about teenagers all the time. Now, we do love them. They get really interesting. Children get really, really interesting during this time. But the 12 to 18-year-old is really, in many ways, the key time where they are forming their adult identity.
Right. It's kind of like their adult self is now coming into play. And this
is really, I think, one of the most important times of life.
This is the vital things, because these are big decisions.
Yeah.
Even if they haven't made big life steps, if you will, at this point, they are forming a orientation and direction. This is where Christian maturity is being built, sought after, or rejected during this time. This is the time where that whole level of independence, which can, for some, for parents, can become a danger or a challenge or
because independence can lead to rebellion. It doesn't have to,
right? But
it can.
But it's a natural part of their growth and development. Again, both physically, mentally, and in some levels spiritually. This level of independence that is slowly beginning to transition there.
Right. And so speaking of transitions, just a little note about that, the transition from one stage to another. I think this is when we hear parents are like, all of a sudden my 5 to the 6-year-old is acting like a baby again. Like, they're doing all of these things that they're, whatever, they're acting this way. Or we've even experienced, my 11-year-old son all of a sudden is crying all the time. Right. Like, when he gets frustrated, he cries. And is there something wrong with him? No. Yeah. No. It is because when they are moving from one plane to the next, that time of transition can be kind of turbulent.
It is.
And then don't worry, just keep going. They'll level out.
because the turbulence, right, that they have, or all the change that they're going through, they're looking for some level of safety and security, I think. So it's like the 2 steps forward, they're growing in this area, they're maturing in this area, but it's a little risky. It's a little unknown. And so they may often psychologically or usually unintentionally revert back in some other areas, just because they're still holding on, they're grasping at one world ahead of them and still holding on to the one in the past. And there's just this,
even if
I don't say conflict, but it's a tension,
I mean,
right?
even if you physically think of planes, if you think of like one plane and then you're like moving up to another one, if you're climbing a mountain, if you're climbing something, like that period between when you're going from one level to the next level, that can be difficult. And psychologically, those can be difficult times for children. And everything is a phase. I remember what a bunch of moms, we were talking about, and it's just like when your kid is doing something, almost everything really is a phase. And so when you see that in your child, note how old they are, right? Note, and if you're noticing these things, don't be nervous.
And I'll just make this note on those times of transition, which we'll probably unpack a little bit more, is that's where it's really vital for parents to help your kids in that time. Like those are sensitive times, and you really need to pour in, not just in controlling, but pouring in with love and affirmation and delight, as well as, depending on the transition time, to give them the opportunities they need to grow and embrace the next phase in their development.
Because I think that parents can't have, it's very hard for parents to have a consistent, very high level of engagement, and that's okay.
Yes.
Like, because if your child is doing well, you're observing that, it's okay to pull back. But then when you see them struggling, it's okay to engage more.
That's right.
So just recognize that there is an ebb and flow in our relationship with our kids. Okay.
Right. And so Can I just want to make sure.
Go
Go.
All right, so we're going to move into now developing gifts and talents. When we talk about family culture, this is the 4th element of your family culture. Right. So, side note, Canaan 9D, develop family culture. Go ahead and join. But one of the reasons it is our 4th element in our family culture is because it is so very important that parents help to call out the gold, if you will, in their child at different stages in different ways. Because this is part of forming your child's identity, helping them to discover who they were created to be, how God has created them different than other people. And to really, as you delight in your child and in their gifts, then they will learn that God delights in them.
That's right.
Right? So first of all, in your 0 to 6, I mean, this is just, they are that absorbent mind. You are providing them this environment, and they are just kind of like living life.
They're soaking it up.
Exactly. They're just soaking up.
They're in wonder of the world around them, right?
Totally.
And you give them the space simply just to be.
Yes.
But then when you move to that 6 to 12,
right?
This is where, again, those seeds of future gifts. It's not maybe fully unpacked yet, but as a parent, your goal. And we're not getting too much into the parents. I guess the parent role, we'll talk about it a little bit throughout. But it is the sampling, right? As a child, they don't know, oh my gosh, as 6-year-old, you are going to be an Olympic athlete, and we're deciding that right now. You're sampling. You're giving them exposure to things because, again, moving from pure absorbent mind, you're now trying to give them, like, I always think that when I've taken my kids out, I don't like that. Like, how many times young children, only want plain foods or don't like spicy things, we as parents are supposed to expose them to the diversity of the beauty of things out there. And so whether it be, trying many different sports, whether it be piano lessons, whether it be, other experiences, you're just, again,
trying different foods, going to different places, having different experiences is very important during this time.
Because again, the 0 to 6, their environment essentially is your family and the culture within your home.
And that's enough.
Purely, almost, right? And now you're beginning to expose them to the larger world, the goodness of the bounty of the earth, as well as the life that we offer.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, just kind of contrasting those two phases. I see sometimes parents with very young children want to give them out and give them different experiences in that 0 to 6. And I'll be honest with you, you really don't have to do that right then. Right. Like,
it doesn't hurt them if they're with their older siblings or anything like that.
Exactly.
Right.
But if you have only young children and you're like, well, they should be traveling. No. They literally do not need anything probably outside of your own home. Like, it really, even 50 years ago, 6-year-olds didn't even go to school. Right. Kindergarten was not even compulsory in most states, right? You didn't really have to even send your child to school until 1st grade because everybody recognized that plane, they really just are fine and happy, and they need that good foundation of their home, of mom, of dad, of family. That's fine. But when you get to that 6 to 12-year-old, that's the time when, yes, take those trips. Yes, bring them to the Science Museum. Get the zoo membership.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Because that is the time they are most interested.
Which is why I think it's so fun.
It is so fun. So they really are that explorer. And why do you do that? You do that because the child is learning how they respond, and they're learning more about themselves through those experiences. Even giving them experiences of heroes, right? In literature.
Yeah.
And they learn in literature or even
Movies
in cartoons,
and
movies, Batman, Superman, great saints, great, explorers, great figures of history. All of those are so important because that is another way in which the child develops their identity. They're really exploring those different ideas.
And at that age too, they do see the world in more black and white.
Yes.
And their moral conscience is being formed. So that exposure and their imagination that is being formed, it's really giving them foundations of a worldview. They haven't captured it yet. They're borrowing yours. You, by changing their environment, by giving them that exposure, you're helping stretch those muscles. You're helping. Now, they're still really clinging to what you have, right? They're very dependent on where you take them, but it's also the world that you open up to them. And this is why it's important to make sure we slow down. That we're having the time to give them those experiences. Like, I think the zoo memberships and the going to, the art museums, and it's exposing them to something greater.
And I will say a note here too about kids' activities during this time.
Yes.
So this is not true necessarily when they get older, but in the 6 to 12 stage, I would say if your child is in an activity that they hate, just let them quit it. It's totally fine. It's really fine. If your child is doing dance class or soccer or whatever, and they're there for, a couple times, maybe 5, 6, and they're like, I hate this, allow them to quit. It's really, really, at this stage, it's really okay because it's good for them to have that experience of trying it.
Yes.
And then being like, yeah, this isn't all I thought it would be.
Right.
Then that's okay.
And because your kids will say, oh, I don't want to do that because they've never experienced it before. And that's part of the exploring. Like you start with giving them new experiences, trying new things. So when they say,
I want to do that, do you make them do it?
Yeah.
I agree. Right.
And so you start them out. I don't know how to do dance, or I don't know how to do blah, blah, blah. Or I'm not sure I'm going to really like that. Or I don't like that, even though there's no basis upon which they're saying these things. Well, your job as a parent to say, yeah, you're a kid and I'm the adult and I'm going to expose you to these experiences.
You should try it.
Yeah, you should try it. But that doesn't mean that now that you're in ballet or you're whatever, and you're now stuck in it for the rest of your life. This is your child isn't living out some of your childhood fantasies of what you wish to, but it's okay that it's not a life decision for them, and you're not necessarily trying to specialize them. I think there's actually a problem when we specialize too much in any of their planes, but particularly in the 6 to 12. It's okay that they're still sampling. They're
and you
still
know what?
exploring.
Actually, I had a pediatrician say that to me once. We were one of my kids was in for a checkup. And he was like, you know what? It's actually really good for them to have not to specialize, especially in sports. during that time.
And we make assumptions about our kids that they will act or react or like or dislike things that we liked. They may, but they may not. Again, and I'll say this, just on the gifts and talents, particularly when they're younger, do things that you enjoy. Do things that you love. In the 0 to 6, 100%. Do things that bring you passion.
We're like losing time here.
Oh,
we have so much to go through.
All right. That's right.
Okay, so let's move on.
We're only
to
24. We're only 24. So
I know. We're not even halfway through.
But
let's
thinking
go to
about the
12
passion,
to 18-year-olds.
So thinking about those passions, right?
Yeah.
Those are important, particularly then as they grow into the next phase of development. So now we're at the 12 to 18. Right. This is when their interaction, their giftedness, we'll just stay in that giftedness plane.
Yeah, definitely.
This is where you hopefully have some ground upon which to build. That in their 6 to 12, you found some things that they may be good at. You saw something bubbling up, something that they were passionate about, something they had a gifting in. This is where you go a little deeper. This is where your child may want to hone in on a particular area, because if you look and say they were in the absorbent part of their life in the 0 to 6, they're explorer, and now their identity is no longer purely determined by your home.
Right.
Naturally, developmentally, their independence is requiring that they're getting wrapped up in the things that they do. Now, we've got to make sure there's a danger in our kids completely defining their identity by how they look, how they interact, the gifts they have, the lack of things that they have, because they feel awkward in their own skin sometimes as they physically grow. But it is important that they're beginning to develop this part of their identity in some level in how they interact with that world around them.
Right.
And how they're out there.
Just keep in mind, none of these things are left behind.
That's right.
Everything that we're saying is these are foundational building blocks.
That's
okay.
Right.
So like your home is still important, right?
That's right.
Their friends are still, all of those things, but then they hone in that 12 to 18-year-olds. And that's during high school is when they start defining who they are really more by what they do. Now it's really good that they have that foundation.
It's necessary
of being a son or a daughter. Yes, it's absolutely necessary. But it is also good for them to say, I'm a piano player. I am a tennis player. I'm a football player. I am a singer, right? I am really smart. Whatever it is, that they kind of hone in on those talents, because that does help them to form that identity. And so, and the other part too is their friendships, which we are going to get to, but there's a lot of changes that happen during this time. And this is where the teenage years, where it's okay for them to persevere. So if they start, so this is where I would change whereas in the younger ages, if they try something, they don't like it and they want to quit, that's fine.
That's right.
I think in the teenage years, if they try a sport and they want to quit, if I were a parent,
yeah.
we've always encouraged our kids to just stay through to the season.
Yeah.
Because there's always a difficulty when you have to become really good at something, where it's like a hump, you hit that wall, but then you get beyond it. Yeah. And then you get really good. Like our son, Jim, when he was playing football, for 2 or 3 years, he played a little bit. It was hard. He persevered. Junior year, he did well. Senior year, total breakout year, and it's because he persevered. He stayed in it.
And that level of discipline in that, the 12 to 18 is where, again, it's a new strength that's being developed. Yeah. It's honing a natural given gift, a gift that is not necessarily unpacked.
Yeah.
That gift now is being honed. It's being sharpened. You're putting knowledge and experience, which really develops it into a strength.
Right. And they can become really good at something.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'm going to go quickly through this parenting role here, because I think we really touched on this. But again, as you think about your role as a parent in general with your child, in the 0 to 6, it is loving on them. It is delighting them. It is giving to your child what they need to be a true boy and a girl.
And that environment, the environment is so important. That's what you're shaping for them within your home, how you speak to your spouse, how you speak to them all of that. That's the 0 to 6.
And you're protecting their innocence, right?
Right.
You're allowing them just to be your child, and you're delighting in them. Then the 6 to 12, right? Again, this is where we talked about the whole explorer, right? But this is where the beginnings of that natural giftedness are being recognized. You're starting to see some things, and you're giving them exposure to things. And you're beginning towards the end of this to give them more freedom.
Yeah.
Maybe they're still, again, very much kids. But, like we always talk about the driving analogy, you're not just throwing the keys to your 16, 15-year-old and saying, for the first time, go have fun. When they're in the 11, 10, and 12, you're slowly thinking, okay, I'm going to give them little moments where they're experiencing freedom so that they can exhibit and choose virtue.
Where I think freedom is really important is that they have the freedom of time.
Yes, just to
please,
explore.
I beg of you, please do not overschedule your 6 to 12-year-old child.
Right.
Please do not. If your child has activities every day after school, it's too much. It's too much. This is the age where kids need to be just like riding bikes outside, going out and playing in the woods, being able to be with their friends, being in their room, exploring books and crafts and all of those kinds of things. They need that time to be bored so they can start really constructing who they are in relation to the world.
Yeah.
And so I really think that that's very important for parents. Again, your environment, don't get caught up in them being only playing soccer 12 months out of the year. That is a disservice to that age child.
Yeah.
And because they need to be exploring and doing different things and having just a little freedom.
That's right. And so then again, think of the parents' role in the 12 to 18. This is where we as parents can help them understand themselves, help our teenager explore their own personality. And this is where, sometimes there might be an assessment or a quiz or a temperaments or whatever it might, you're doing it so as to help them unpack. Again, you see the gold, you see the goodness in them, but you want them to begin to see, okay, no, I do have a gift in this area. I do have a strength, or I do have a passion or interest or drive, or this is the way I'm wired and designed. And again, this is, as a parent, you can see things that they can't. And so you're in a way, your blessing for the 0 to 6 might just be blessing, you're my beloved child. Where as a parent in the explorer, the 6 to 12, it's like, we trust you to explore with greater freedom. And there's a blessing, if you will, in that. But now we're trying to say, this is what I see in you. And I want to call that, you said it before, calling out that gold in their life.
Because in the 12 to 18-year-olds, they need to be thinking, okay, this is who I am. How am I supposed to make a gift of myself to the world?
Yes.
That's what they need to be moved, because that is ultimately what it means to be an adult. Where they are moving, you are forming their adult self, you as a parent. And so you're helping them answer that question. You're coaching them. You're moving into that role of a coach.
That's exactly right.
To help them to see, how do you want to decide to make a gift of yourself to the world? And that is something you cannot decide for them. They need to decide. They need to decide what it is that they're going to study, what they're going to major in college, the friends that they're going to have. You can't decide their friends anymore.
Yes.
You can't, and you shouldn't. That's something that they need to do. But your role as the parent is there as a coach and helping them to see themselves and to encourage them to persevere and to make that gift of themselves.
Because a lot of the formation during the 12 to 18 time happens outside of the home. It's not pure. Again, we're always building blocks. There are so many things that we do.
Home is still important.
Home,
we're not saying that.
But this is where, again, we'll talk a little bit more about friendships. But this is where experiences, where they need new experiences, they need new mentors in some ways, whether it be coach, teacher, youth minister, other young adults in their lives, if not adults, as well as their friends. And there is something powerful about this time of independence. And our role as parents, it is a little bit more precarious during this time, that we need to allow some level of risk.
And I will say, just kind of like to put a finer point on it, one of our sons, like we were telling him over and over again when he was like 17 years old, kind of pointing out to him, he was dating this girl as he's getting ready to go into college. And we were like, she's younger than you. Like, college is such a new experience. Like, you should probably break up with her just because you're going off and you want to give her freedom and all of that. And of course he doesn't listen to us.
Of course.
And then when he starts college, he comes back to us and he's like, yeah, I was talking to these guys and they said, you know what? You really should break up with her because they were totally right. And we're like sitting there like, yeah, we've been telling you that for like 6 months, but we didn't say anything. But the point is that he needed his friends were becoming a more of an influence and in some ways a source of advice than we were.
That's right. Because we must
now,
decrease.
Thankfully, he had good friends.
Again, but there is a level where parents, must decrease so that their child's independence can increase, their autonomy, their own, decision making. They're having their own agency because with great power comes great responsibility, and we want them to have that. And again, just thinking of the boys, just going off of that, like in this 12 to 18, the teenage years, right? This adolescent time, we'd often, in the dad's course that I teach, we talk about this being the cowboy stage where they really are going out and they're testing their hardness, they're testing their strength. They're going, and again, there's a corollary here for sure for girls but they're asking, do I have what it takes? And they need to know this not just from their dad. They do need to know it from their dad for sure, but it's also about them exploring in such a way that they are prepared to go out into the world as warriors. Yeah. And that time while they're under your roof, the 12 to 18, is a strengthening of what was already laid there as a foundation and preparing them for the next stage, which again, we said this in the group. If you think about it, think about how old your child is right now. Are they 5? Are they 10? Well, calculate forward to 18. That's how many summers you have left. That's how much your time frame is. Probably not as much as you think. That the 10 years goes by very quickly if your child's 8, and if your child's 12, oh my goodness, that next 6 years, that while they're under your roof, you really want to make sure that this is a time of strengthening for them in both your relationship with them, but your ability to allow them to go out into the world. You still being the coach, the model, you're always their parent, right? And when we say coach, that doesn't mean you're not their parent. We're just saying the modality of a parent is to allow them to succeed and lead in their own life.
Right. Okay. So I think that we're gonna combine friendships and their sexual identity together here because I think that they kind of go they overlap a little bit.
Yep.
So again, their sexual identity when they're 0 to 6. Basically, what they're learning right then is I'm a boy, I'm a girl.
That's right. I was made good.
Yeah, no, but their sexual identity is
right.
I'm a boy or a girl. You go to the pediatrician, a 2-year-old, they'll ask, do they know if they're a boy or a girl? They'll probably, no, not really. But by 3 or 4, they should say, I'm a boy, I'm a girl, right? Very, very, very basic. And also you see this in their friendships.
Yeah.
0 to 6-year-olds, they're friends with everybody. Like the boys and girls, there's kind of like birthday parties and stuff. That can all be mixed all together. And most kids too at this stage are kind of like naked and without shame. Like most 3-year-olds, even little girls, will take off all their clothes, run around naked. They don't care. Girls, I think, develop a little modesty a little sooner than boys. I think little boys, probably even some men would run around naked if you'd let them. They don't even care.
Don't even get me started. Some guys, you know who you are.
But they're really the whole boy-girl thing. They kind of like, they're so, oh yeah, I'm a boy, I'm a girl.
Friends
we all
with
play
everybody.
together. They're friends with everybody.
But
that changes though in 6 to 12. All right. So 6 to 12, this is when I have seen same-sex friendships, little boys and little girls being together, are really key.
Right.
This is when they don't want to have their birthday parties with the little girl. The boys, a 10-year-old boy, he wants to have all of his, he should really. He's going to have a lot more fun if it's just all boys together.
That's right.
And the girls too. They have a lot more fun as 8-year-olds if it's just all little girls. Right. Because they're really kind of forming not just that I am a boy or a girl, but this is how boys and girls act.
Right. And how we interact with the world is different. And it's like, again, using the party as an analogy, right? There's an army guy or there's a princess, or whatever, right? Two very different party themes going on here.
Yes.
And it's not, complete social constructs, right? These are innate in the child, and a desire for that is good because they're understanding what their boyhood or their girlhood looks like.
Right. And even as far as their own body goes, it's very unusual for children in the 6 to 12-year-old age range to have body image issues.
Yes.
Most kids that age, they're just like we were saying before. They're kind of like exploring their body. They're figuring out what their body can do. They're not really necessarily, or it's more unusual, not that it doesn't happen, but it's a little bit more unusual that they think, oh, I don't like how I look, or I'm not pretty,
That's
or
more
whatever.
of a later.
That's a little bit later for in general, but usually they are like, if you see pictures of little 10-year-old girls, most of them, at least in times gone by, they don't really care about their hair or how they look. They're just like all like a little bit more messy
Yes,
than
yes,
a 15-year-old girl who's learning how to be a woman. You know, they're just a little, this is where you have a lot of tomboys, you know, like there's so many women now who say, I would say probably 30% of the women I meet will say, oh yeah, when I was 10 to 12-year-old, I was a tomboy. Yeah, because we're all running through the woods, like having fun, but we're learning more about ourselves. But even that, you know, because yeah, women enjoy nature, enjoy hiking and all of that just as much as men, but we're learning to do it as a girl.
Right. And I think that's also why toward the end of this 6 to 12, there is this sensitive period, right?
Yes.
We call it the golden years, not just for sexual identity and all of that, but that there's a key moment where they're wondering about themselves. And there's physical changes that they're on the cusp of coming into, right? And this is why it's really important that moms and dads speak into that with love and truth to who they are, that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, that you're conferring on them that you are not only my beloved son or daughter, but that you are a beloved son and daughter of God, and you are made uniquely, powerfully. So Alicia has the Women Wonderfully Made course, right? For mothers in this
11 to 12, 13, around there.
That early or late second plane, where you're conferring, like, yeah, you are made feminine. You are made, and this is not about boys. This is about you and your uniqueness. And I talk about it with the dads, that they understand this is what it means to have a masculine soul. It's not just a physicality of being a boy. That's part of it. And the changes that come with that time period. But it's also that you're cultivating within them a deep sense of what it means to be a boy or a girl. And it's important that they hear this, particularly from the same-sex parent.
Yes.
Or, and if that parent isn't present, that there is something important that they are seeing, because there's a longing within our hearts to be like, again, am I a real man? Am I a real woman?
Yeah.
And what is good and holy about that?
And there is something, I cannot emphasize this enough, the turbulence that the human person goes through during this time in their life.
Yes.
I have met very few women who say, oh yeah, I sailed through my middle school years. You know, like I just remember, I always say this, I remember from the time I was 11 to probably around I was like 14, I just felt stupid all the time. And you would never know that.
I'm not laughing at you, okay?
You would never know that by looking at me, even in that age, right? From the outside, I was confident. I was great at school. I was, good at everything. I had lots of different experiences. But inside, there was so much turbulence going on. And I don't think that I'm unusual in that fact of now raising 10 children through that age. Our last one just coming out of that. It is a very turbulent time. And the parent's role is so key.
Yeah, it is.
It
decisive.
is so key. It is key in your relationship with them, but it is also key in the environment that you have created up to that point, and what the things that you are now giving to them. Those friendships are key. Those talents are key. It's really, really important that your antennas are up.
Yeah.
If you are having marriage issues, personal issues, all of that, get your crap together. Okay,
because
guys?
you can't be distracted.
I'm not even kidding. You cannot be, parents cannot be distracted. When you have children between that 11, 12, 13, depending on the maturity of your child,
Golden time
boys,
for
girls,
parents.
it's so very important because it sets the stage. It sets the foundation for your child's development of their identity as an adult. So you have got to be focused on them, calm, ask for the Lord's grace, get ready.
How to help them navigate through that time.
How to help them navigate.
Because they need you more than ever. I believe this is why that they, in general, when they're under the age of 13, you are still, on some level, their hero.
Yeah.
And that you are larger than life. Pour in to set your relationship between you and your child to a whole new level, so that, because they're going to need you through a more challenging time for them in the teen years that are coming ahead. And again, some child, they end up before, or the maturity comes a little sooner than this. Again, you have to kind of keep an eye on it. It's not like there's a certain date, right?
Every kid's different.
But again, and again, thinking of our children, again, thinking of the sexual identity, this is where pornography needs to be nipped in the bud, or it needs to be
addressed,
inoculated against.
Yes.
Earlier, right?
Yes.
They say now, I believe 9. 9 is the average age of when a young boy, and I don't know if it's the same for boys and girls, where a boy would see pornography. I'm sorry, that is way, I think it was 9 or 10. And that's crazy. It's gone down and down and down. And so we need to, again, not by exposing them to pornography, but making them aware of that, because they need to know there's this truth that I've seen that I think this is true for girls too, but particularly for boys, they need to know what is man's role in sexuality and life and all of that, kind of what is masculinity oriented towards between the 12 to 14, 15, or the world will fill that up.
Yeah.
The world will answer that question for him. And so it is vital that we do that, because as we go into this 12 to 18, this is when we're beginning to, our child needs to begin interacting with the opposite sex. That doesn't mean they need to start dating. Everyone has a different kind of approach to that. We're not going to talk about dating deeply here. But this is when your child will now, again, early on, everybody was their friend. There's kind of a differentiation in that second plane. Now they are seeing themselves more in relationship to the world around them. So it's good and it's important for them to have relationships and just know how to treat with dignity and respect members of the opposite sex.
Right. And I think that is really important. And I want to say a little note in this whole, there's an issue with our young adults and Catholic young adults not getting married and not knowing how to treat each other correctly. And to be honest with you, I think that may have been caused by well-meaning Catholic parents who did not allow their teenagers to hang around a lot with other boys and girls. And there's a malformation that happens there when you don't allow your teenagers to get to know boys and girls in a healthy manner and learn how to relate with them. Yeah. So this is where I actually have seen this in schools. I remember talking to a school administrator once where they really believed in separating the boys and girls during middle school and even part of grade school. But then in high school, or probably around I think it's their sophomore year, they bring them back together. And I think that is genius because I think that it is really important that they learn how to relate and how to be friends with, and in our opinion, how to date members of the opposite sex in those later high school years, those 16 to 18 years old. I think that it's very important that they also learn how to love their bodies, how to be comfortable with their bodies. This is why we've said so many times, especially for young men, athletics are so important, because your young boy, your teenage boy, needs to be comfortable with his manly body.
That's right.
He needs to feel strong. He needs to feel strong. Maybe he's not your typical bodybuilder football player physique, but he should feel strong in some capacity, whether
there's
it's
a capacity
track,
and a capability that's been learned.
Whether it's track or tennis, or for goodness sakes, it could be bowling. It could be whatever. And I was just talking to a priest who said that he really believes that when men don't feel strong physically, they will not feel strong even morally or mentally. That there's something about the physicality of men that is so important.
Because we are a body soul composite, right?
Exactly.
And men in particular are more physical and more external in the way we relate.
And you know what? I think for women, young women need to feel beautiful.
Yes.
They need, now every beauty is different. We talk about this in the Women Wonderfully Made, just how God made all different types of flowers, and they're all have a different kind of beauty to them. That is true for women. Not all women are beautiful in the same way, but every young woman needs to feel beautiful in some capacity.
Yes.
And so I think those are the two differences, and that really needs to happen during those teenage years, because there's a power in men and what they bring to the world, and I think there's a beauty that women also bring to the world. Yes. And the world needs both of those things. And I think that really helps to shape your identity as a man or a woman in those teenage years. And this is when it is good for them to be doing these different activities and relating with men and women and having those strong friendships. If your teenager does not have friends, you need to change that.
That's right.
Because friends are so very important during this time. And a good friendship, even if those friendships don't last into college, I think those good friendships are really, really key to their moral development.
And we have now kind of unpacked these big areas of what it means to confer identity. And you've seen how that's done. And we should mention, right, again, the 0 to 6 is often done within the home. And that is a foundation. That's the building block, where then as we move to the 6 to 12, obviously it's a little bit of both. It's always going to be your home, but they're beginning to explore and stretch, and that's good. But in those teen years, they still need the base of your home. Don't ever mistake in anything that we're saying about the need for them to have independence.
Correct.
It is truth, goodness, and beauty in your home that's still going to give them the strength to go out. And, even though they're interacting in the 6 to, or the 12 to 18 with members of the opposite sex, the single sex relationships are still so fundamental.
They always will be.
And we see that going into the college years, that how important those all men or all women relationships in giving them strength for the rest of our lives, right? And so all of this is about setting the foundation for our children so they can understand that they are a gift. So as to make themselves a gift to this world.
All right, let's just close with a prayer.
Okay. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Lord, you have called us to be your beloved children. We can't be a mother or father without first understanding our own identity. But out of this abundance, Lord, allow us to confer an identity upon our children, the beginning of that identity being our beloved child, delighting in them. Lord, allow us the insight, the wisdom to look at our kids, where they are at today, any struggles, any challenges they have to their identity, and how we might respond in the most perfect way. Lord, give us courage and give us strength and wisdom to be parents for our children. In your name we pray. Amen.
And check out the key takeaways and couple discussion questions in our notes. And
until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.